Hey, what's up, guys? It's your boy Matt here, and we back with another episode of Matter of Fact MMA. So today we're going to continue breaking down UFC 291, which goes down this Saturday, where in the main event, Dustin Poirier will step in the octagon with, I wanted to say Michael Chandler, but that's incorrect, Justin Gaethje for the BMF Championship. So, yesterday we talked about the main event and the co-main event. Now we're going to move a little bit more down the card. Next, we got Wonderboy, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, stepping in there with Michelle Pereira. This fight could be a banger, okay? It could be a banger. We're going to see how it's going to go. So first off, you got Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I mean, if you've been watching MMA for a long time, you know who he is, okay? You know what his specialty is. You know what he's all about. Michelle Pereira, a little bit newer to the game, but he's made a lot of headlines over the years. Some for good reasons, some for bad reasons. The bad reasons being he is known to overexert himself early in fights, gas out. However, that doesn't equate to him losing the same fight that he'll overexert himself and gas out. He still might win by the scorecards, but you can definitely see that it's a damper on his skill set. I mean, when you see him, if this guy could learn to manage his energy, which he's gotten better with over time, I will admit, over time he has gotten better with. So I will admit that. But if he could learn to manage his energy, there's no telling where this guy could go. He's strong. He's got good technique. Good hard strikes. He's very athletic. He's even acrobatic. I don't think that plays any sort of role in the octagon for real, but he gets out there. He'll do a flip if you dare him. He'll do a flip. You know what I'm saying? He's one of them type of guys. You know. He's one of them guys that gets drunk at the barbecue, and next thing you know, he's getting up on a picnic table, and he's like, "Y'all want to see me flip off of this?" You know what I'm saying? So that's what goes down. Nevertheless, in this fight, this one is hard to call, and because it just depends on, it's one of two things. Number one, this fight is in Salt Lake City. It's an extremely high elevation, so you have to look at it like Michelle Pereira has to go out there and not, blow his wad early in the fight. He can't go out there and do too much too early. He's got to pace himself. He's got to save his energy, because Wonderboy has never been known to gas out or get tired. So that's one side. If he's going to go out there and overexert himself trying to get Wonderboy out of there in the first round or early in the second, then you got to go with Wonderboy to win, because he's going to outlast him. He's going to outpoint him. He's going to take it to the scorecards, and he's going to win. That's just what it is. The other factor is Wonderboy is about 41 or 42 now. And so at some point, just kind of how I alluded to, in Holly Holm's last fight, you see the bottom fall out on these fighters as they get older. And they kind of hit that wall where you're looking at, a fighter you've been watching for years, and you realize, oh, they done got old. You know what I'm saying? And it's all downhill from there. So that's your two factors there. If this is finally the fight that you're going to look at Wonderboy and be like, man, he done got old. Like, Wonderboy, he won the man. He won the Gramps out here. If that's what's going on, then, there you go. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Michelle Pereira for getting that big win. But if he's still got anything left in the tank, if there's still more juice to be squeezed out of that orange, then you probably want to take Wonderboy, because chances are, even with the new, more conservative Michelle Pereira, it's still hard. I mean, it's hard not to go out in the jungle and be a lion. You know what I'm saying? It's hard not to go out there, and when if he was a car, if he was a Lamborghini, it's hard to go out there and drive 35 miles an hour. You know what I'm saying? So we'll see how it all plays out. But for that fight, I mean, that's just what I tell you. I can't really pick a winner there. I'm just going to say that those are your two factors that would determine who's going to win that fight. Let's move on. Next fight. This one is probably going to be a sad one. Just straight up, this is going to be sad. King Bobby Green. I don't know. He may have just changed his name to King by now, but King Bobby Green is going to step in there with El Kukui, Tony Ferguson. That and after I've said that, that's why you probably understand why I said this could be sad. So, I mean, what do you want me to say? I mean, I don't see a world where the current version of Tony is going to win this fight. On his rise, to become the interim lightweight champion, I was a huge Tony Ferguson fan, but I think all the mounting injuries and, more importantly, the mental fatigue that was given to Tony by him just never getting his shot in the sun, never getting his shot at the actual title, never getting his shot at Khabib. I think overall, when you factor in the injuries, and he's a wild man anyway, you factor all of that in, and the mental fatigue of you never getting that chance, and you're finally going to get that chance, and then the whole world shuts down. I'm not going to say why the whole world shut down, but y'all know. So it's just kind of like, bro, I think it was just never any coming back from that. Plus, when you go into you go into like a 5-round war. I believe it went to 5 rounds. Might only went to 4. It's either 4 or 5. When you go in there with a war, bro, I'm talking about when you go in there in a war with a man that's got, Sherman tank rounds for hands, talking about Justin Gaethje, possibly the new BMF champion. When you go in there with him, and there's no crowd, there's no audience, and we hear, these shots landing time and time again, just that. When you just keep hearing that, bro, that was just on my fist, and it kind of hurt a little bit. My little hand kind of might be broke, might be injured. But that was all over Tony's head, his face, his cheeks, orbitals, his jaw, his chin, the leg kicks, his shins, his knees, everything was all beat up. So, I mean, and he's never been the same since that Justin Gaethje fight. So, I mean, with this, there's not a lot to say. I expect Bobby Green to go out there and definitely get a finish. If he doesn't get a finish, it'll definitely be a 3-round decision going toward Bobby Green. And if by some chance, regardless, I believe Tony Ferguson is going to lose. If he loses, I believe he should put his gloves down in the octagon. And let's just not keep going this route. If by some way that Tony Ferguson is actually able to win this fight, then most definitely put the gloves down in the octagon and just leave. You've done your part. You've entertained everyone. You were a heck of a interim champion. You're a great representative of the lightweight division, and now it's just time to ride off into the sunset. But we'll see how that plays out. In that fight, I got Bobby Green, but I'm probably not saying nothing that you already didn't say to yourself. All right, so the last fight we're going to go over today, and we'll make another video tomorrow to really get into the back half of this card, because it's a pretty stacked card for the most part. So there's some more fights to get into. We're going to get into Michael Chiesa stepping in there with Kevin Big Mouth Holland, or Kevin Trailblazer Holland. This one is a little bit tougher. Somewhat similar to the Wonderboy fight when it comes to Michael Chiesa. Now, Michael Chiesa is nowhere near the age of Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. However, Michael Chiesa has had a fairly long career when you're talking about someone coming from the Ultimate Fighter days to now. And we're talking about, he was on the old Ultimate Fighter. We ain't talking about that Conor McGregor, Michael Chandler Ultimate Fighter, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, Michael Chiesa, to me, I don't really know what it is. He's a guy that has all the intangibles to be an incredible fighter, but it just hasn't necessarily manifested itself throughout his career. At times, he's looked extremely good. He's looked extremely, confident in his grappling, in his takedowns, in his wrestling, in his top pressure, and at times he's even looked pretty good on the stand-up side, but it's just never really manifested itself. Michael Chiesa, I don't really know what his deal is, but he just seems like a guy, he just can't make all those connections in the fight. I've heard different fighters, in interviews and, on podcasts talking about he's a beast in the gym. I mean, in the gym, this guy is almost unbeatable. But once he makes it to the octagon, it's a little bit different. And I don't know, maybe he robbed his career a little bit, robbed some of the heights he could have soared by being at 155 for so much of his career and depleting himself and draining himself. Maybe that's the case. I'm not really sure, but I just don't know what he still has to offer. With that being said, he could definitely go out there and not only beat Kevin Holland, but finish Kevin Holland. But you never really know what version of Michael Chiesa you're going to get. While with Kevin Holland, I mean, the guy I believe is still hungry. I'm assuming he still has title aspirations. I mean, Kevin Holland's he's just an all around, he's a dog. And he's a fighter. He's an entertaining guy. He's all around. I believe he's all around. He's a fighter's fighter. In a sense, he just goes out there and he scraps. You know what I'm saying? This is a guy that when he fought, coincidentally, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson had a chance to take him to the ground or was on the ground with Wonderboy, and he let him up because he just wanted to do a scrap. He just wanted to stand up fight, and he ended up losing that fight. So with Kevin Holland, you never know if his decisions, if his fight IQ is going to cause him to lose the fight. For example, him trying to, touch gloves with Khamzat Chimaev after they've had like a 4 or 5 day beef. And now you're finally going to fight and you choose to touch gloves with the guy and he immediately takes you down to the ground. And a few seconds later, he finishes you. It's just like, bro, where's your IQ? I thought this was a guy you didn't like. So with this fight, I'm picking Kevin Holland regardless, but it wouldn't shock me if this is the night where Michael Chiesa finally puts it all together and gets him out of there, or if Kevin Holland makes a huge fight IQ mistake and loses the fight. But in this fight, I got to go along with Kevin Holland. And I mean, that's just what it is. I often wonder about Kevin Holland. I feel like he's just one of those guys where he needs to be wild. You know what I'm saying? Like some fighters, I believe that John Jones was like that early in his career. I believe that some fighters are just it's in their nature. They're just wild men. They're crazy, bro. And wild women at that. They're just a little bit off. There's got to be something that's not connecting up here that makes you want to go in the octagon and fist fight another person. And sometimes that wildness works to the fighter's benefit. And once they get a little bit more tamed, a little bit, start having children, maybe get married, life starts catching up to them. When that wildness kind of calms down, a lot of the times those fighters just they're nowhere near as good as they were. And so I believe it's kind of like a tale of two John Jones, so to speak. Early on, he was a wild man, he was off, he was crazy, and he was shocking all of us that was watching him go in the cage and violently dismantle people, right? Later in his career, he's still a wild man, but he's not like getting locked up every week like he was for a little while, you know what I'm saying? I think and even in his performances in the octagon, he's a lot more calculated. He's not quite as wild. And I think that in his case, he just managed to learn so many skills over time, and he has so many natural attributes from his height to his length, speed, so on and so forth. I think he just has a tremendous fight IQ that's allowed him to continue to go out there and win, even though that wild man that we all once, loved to watch in the octagon might have kind of dulled a little bit. He's still a wild dude, you know what I'm saying? You never know when you're going to you're going to turn on TMZ and John Jones just slapped 4 children as he was going up an escalator. And you're like, oh, man, come on, John. I was just waking up to my morning coffee, you know what I'm saying? But, I feel like the Kevin Holland a little bit earlier in his career was a lot wilder. He was talking to guys during the fight. People are trying to sit there and scrap. He's talking to you. He's saying different stuff to you. He's talking to Khabib outside the cage. He's talking to DC outside the cage while the fight's going on. And somehow, early in his career, he made all of that work. And then, as his coaches tried to hone him in, try to rein him in, so to speak, try to make him a little bit calmer, probably started trying to game plan more with him and everything. While you would think that would make him a better fighter and make his career better, sometimes I believe that's why he takes the losses that he does now, is because half of him is in there going off of instinct and he wants to be that wild, crazy guy. And the other half are his coaches trying to tell him to stick to the game plan and stay calm and stay sharp. So we'll see how it plays out. In that one, I got to go along with Kevin Holland. But, we're going to see how it all goes down this Saturday night. It's UFC 291. And my picks for this episode have been, I didn't pick between Stephen Wonderboy Thompson and Michelle Pereira because there's a couple factors in that. We'll see how that plays out. The next fight, it's going to be a sad one. Get out your tissues because I'm predicting that King Bobby Green's going to go out there and do Tony Ferguson dirty, do him bad. And I hope Tony puts down the gloves in the octagon and finds another way to, finish out pursue the rest of his life, And then I'm also going to choose next fight down, Big Mouth, Trailblazer, Kevin Holland to go in there and defeat Michael Chiesa. So, I appreciate you guys for joining me for another episode. A matter of fact, MMA. If you can, like, subscribe, comment, let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree or you disagree. Is it Matt or is it fact? You guys let me know. And until next time, I check you later. Peace.